Thank you all for being with us today. Welcome. Please note that the following session will be interpreted bilingual English to Spanish. Por favor, sepa que esta sesión será interpretada de inglés a español, bilingüe o viceversa. Juanita.
Hello, everybody. I want to make a note that we will be interpreting, as Marina said, from English to Spanish and Spanish to English. So when the globe appears at the bottom of your screen, please make sure to select your language, your preferred language. Also, please remember to place any questions of interpretation. If you're having difficulty, let us know. And also try to enjoy the moment and select that language so everybody can hear you and we can hear everybody in this meeting. Also, para todo el mundo, en español, recuerden por favor seleccionar su lenguaje, ya que vamos a interpretar todo lo que está diciéndose en esta reunión al inglés y al español. Así que por favor seleccionen el idioma preferido cuando aparezca el globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. And for everybody, it is a pleasure for me to tell you that we are practicing language justice in this session, and we will have it interpreted precisely so everybody can participate equally, and we honor the languages of everybody. Queremos decirles que estamos practicando justicia lingüística al reconocer el idioma preferido de todo el mundo para que todo el mundo pueda participar por completo y escuchar esta increíble sesión. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. I'm ready to be assigned.
Gracias, Juanita. Thank you, Juanita. As a reminder, if you have not registered through Zoom, we encourage you to register through Zoom to get the benefits of the interpretation. Como un recordatorio, si no se ha inscrito por Zoom, le invitamos a que se inscriba por Zoom para obtener los beneficios de la interpretación. Okay. I am also finding my globe. There we go, English. Thank you all for joining us and taking time from your busy schedules to accompany us from near and far. We invite you to tune in, watch, listen in on this important conversation. We promise it will be worthwhile. My name is Marina Rodriguez. I am a mom, daughter, sister, auntie, a partner, a coach, a facilitator, content creator, and lots more. I am also the education mentor coach at All Our Kin, for All Our Kin Technical Assistance Team. All Our Kin is a nationally recognized organization that was born very locally in New Haven, Connecticut, where I grew up. At All Our Kin, we've been elevating the profile of family childcare for close to 3 decades. Today, we're talking about what, in my opinion, is the heart of the work, coaching, and the power of centering relational approaches in the coaching partnership with family childcare educators, something we know a lot about. Joining me today are Jana Wagner, co-founder of All Our Kin, instrumental in developing the coaching model at All Our Kin. Luz Martinez, my dear colleague and friend, coach at All Our Kin, working in partnership with educators, family childcare educators close to a decade, and working in early childhood for 17 years, over 17 years. We are also joined by educator, family childcare educator, Jasmine Avila, who's had her program for over 7 years and has worked closely with Boost, and she's located in East Haven, Connecticut. And All Our Kin mentor coach, Tanya Michelson, invaluable peer mentor for many of us at All Our Kin, doing this work for over 2 decades. Last, but certainly not least, also joining us is Ellen Roche, researcher working on examining the relationships between adversity, language, and social emotional development in preschools while working towards her PhD. And she is also the Chief Media Philanthropy Officer and co-director at Trust for Learning. They will all have a chance to briefly introduce themselves shortly. But once again, we are grateful that you have joined us today for the first part of a 3-part conversational series. Each conversation is woven by the same thread, relationships, and stitched by many hands. Each conversation touches on the diverse benefits of coaching and family childcare programs rooted in relational coaching approaches. We will explore how relationship-centered, reflective, and strength-based coaching supports educators and coaches' growth. I'm pleased to begin our conversation with Ellen. My dear Ellen.
Hi.
Thank you for being here, and really thank you for who you are in this world. The work you do in early childhood and your presence. I think it's a gift. So, Ellen, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, the research you're working on, and help us learn a little more on the trust work on the ideal learning principles?
Yeah, Marina, thank you for having me. I was trying to get myself unmuted there for a second, but your presence is a gift. And that's really what the principles of ideal learning are about. It's what I study, right? It's what we are all here to talk about today. How do we support early educators to be present and responsive with the young children that they're working with families? And this quality of presence, right? Of being right here in the moment with each other, focused on each other, is something that human beings are innately really, really good at. We do it from birth, right? We arrive with this capacity for presence. And then I think as we get older, we kind of unlearn, right? Being present with each other in some ways. So how do we call upon that innate capacity that we have to support young children? How do coaches and coaching models support the development of that presence? So I love that you started that way, because that's, I think, really what it's all about. So yes, I'm wearing 2 hats. I am one of the 3 co-directors at Trust for Learning, where we get to work with you and all our kin as part of this movement for what we call ideal learning environments for all young children. We especially focus on publicly funded settings of all varieties, supporting kids and families from the prenatal period to age 8, the early childhood period. So I'll just share a couple of key themes that show up in the principles that are also related to the research that I do. So I am a year out from graduating with my PhD, knock wood, in developmental neuroscience, and I am attempting to look at both caregivers' brains and children's brains as they interact together. So we put a brain hat on a toddler, we put a brain hat on a caregiver, that could be a parent or another caregiver, and we have them play together, do activities, and we watch, are their brains starting to synchronize or not, and what might that mean? So really trying to get under the hood to see, how does this development happen in relationships? What's actually happening at a brain level? So I'll just share a couple of things briefly that kind of connect the dots for me, but hopefully also give us all some context for why talking about relationships is so important when we're thinking not only for children's development, but for adult development too. One thing that I feel like I'm shouting from the rooftops is the idea that human beings are born learning. Learning is our default state. We can't turn off our ability to learn. This is fundamental to who we are. It's fundamental to how we show up every day. Of course, young children are in a really exquisite period of learning. That means we are seeking information. We're trying to make sense of all of the information that's coming at us. When you're a baby, right? That's all this light that I'm seeing. That's all this sound that I'm hearing, including some voices that sound vaguely familiar from my time, in the third trimester. That's the internal sensations that I'm feeling, pain or comfort. It's all these different things coming at someone, right? They have to start to see the patterns and make sense of all of that information. So the way that we do that, especially very early in life, is we need someone else to point out the patterns, right? So that we can make sense of our experience through the lens of this caregiver or caregivers, right? That's how children develop, with many different people supporting that development and that pattern seeking, pattern making. But one of the fundamental questions that the nervous system, the human, organism is asking continually from birth is the question of, am I safe? Am I safe right now? Am I safe right now? Am I safe right now? It's a constant question in the body, right? And the caregiving environment answers that question, right? To create an ecosystem, hopefully, where children feel safe most of the time and where they have good reason to feel safe and they grow up feeling safe. And I think that's so important for thinking about coaching, because I started my career as a teacher and I was coached in models where I felt safe with the person coaching me, to be totally honest about, like, this thing went terribly in my classroom and this thing went really well. And I was coached in models that were really punitive. And I think that question, right, of how do we create and support psychological safety, emotional safety for each other is really at the heart of how we support adults to support young children. So that was my little elevator pitch about ideal learning. And yeah.
I mean, there's so much right now in my brain. Woo! And the idea of presence, attunement, the idea of cultivating, curating spaces where an adult can fully show up as themselves so that they can process in a way that feels safe for them. The idea of having self-compassion when we stop being present, right? But we're coming back into that moment and just being okay with ourselves. I think like you said earlier, some of those pieces were lost through time, through pressure, depending on our lived experiences, right? Where we come from, how we grew up, the messages that we receive from our families about relationship, right? And so all of that contributes to, like, our formation. And so as adults, we show up a certain way. And so I think the reason why I believe in coaching so much, and I've witnessed it myself, is that adults get to experience showing up as a different version of themselves when they're held in this container that can feel safe, right? In this space that can feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the part that moves forward in the care with children and in the care that they offer children. Thank you so much for that. And the other part, like, that I wanted to share too, is that I know that one of the ideal learning principles specifically is continuous learning environments that support adult learning. And it just reminds us, and you talked about this so clearly, reminds us that adults learn best in environments that honor their experience, their dignity, and their capacity for transformation. There's one of the attachment researchers that this person, I think Stephen is his name. I forget his last name right now, but he talks about that what's missing from attachment theory, like attachment theory is important because it's important to understand the way that we behave. And also the other part beyond that is this cognitive flexibility and the ability that for us to create new pathways in relationships that create the space for us to take risks in a way that we can do it, that honors our experiences, that holds us, that centers us. I'll say too that the principle of continuous learning environments that support adult learning also aligns deeply with All Our Kin's mission, because it recognizes that early childhood educators, especially in the context of family childcare, are agents of change. They're leaders and valued professionals whose voices, knowledge, and dreams deserve to be at the center of learning and the professional development process. And I'll add real quickly too that our frameworks, we have a network framework, we have a coaching framework, and we try not to be punitive, right? Or impose knowledge from above. Instead, it cultivates a trusting relationship in spaces where growth is collaborative and contextualized. Because we know, like you said, Ellen, just as children learn best in environments where they feel safe and connected, the same is true for educators. When learning honors who they are and where they come from, it opens up space for honest transformation. Would you do us the honor of leaving us with a nugget of wisdom?
Briefly, I'll just reflect back and build on something that you said around this image of the educator and the caregiver and the image of the child, and how much those images in the public consciousness are informed by these stories that we tell ourselves, right? And these stories are so culturally driven, right? Children should be seen and not heard. Children are sponges. If you can't do, teach, right? We have both constructive and incredibly destructive cultural narratives about the role of caregiving, who caregivers are, who educators are, who children are. And All Our Kin is at the forefront of that culture change, right, toward this more nurturing model. So this work, right, of building this robust sense of what is possible is so important to do. And I just want to reflect back you all's role in shifting that cultural perception. And the other just like tidbit of wisdom that I've been thinking a lot about is I do think that in this era of rapid AI entering our lives, that it's actually a really good moment to reaffirm what makes humans uniquely human, and to, as we kind of contend with to what extent AI should be part of systems of caretaking and education. I think it's a good moment to reflect, like, we actually have a lot of other things going for us that AI does not, and we need to speak up about that. So that's the AI tidbit.
I appreciate it and welcome it. Thank you so much, Ellen, as always, for your guidance, your presence, your studies, your knowledge, all of that you offer us in this sector of early childhood and also to the world. Talk to you soon.
All right, thanks.
Thanks. So as a learning organization whose values include continuous learning, our coaching framework and models have shifted over the years. And Jana is the co-founder of All Our Kin. And for many years, many years, has guided us coaches in partnership and has given shape to our approaches. So, Jana, hi.
Hi, Marina. I don't know if I can follow Ellen. I was writing down all these notes. I was really inspired by that.
She's amazing.
She is amazing.
I feel fortunate to have her on my side. We should all feel fortunate to have her on our side.
Exactly.
Yes. So Jay, as I call her very tenderly, because she's also my friend, can you take us down memory lane? Tell us a little bit about the history of the coaching program, how it's evolved, and like, did you imagine it to be this way today, the way that it's, you know, manifested itself, if you will?
Thanks for having me here, Marina. No, but we did imagine coaching as a core part of All Our Kids model from the very beginning. From the start, the work was really driven by educators' goals. And, we ran a family childcare program, and our model was based on coaching educators in real time. And we wanted to bring what we knew. The research from the education field said that educators learn best, right? We knew this research in elementary education, in upper education, that educators learn best by in-program support based on adult learning that's ongoing, that's relational, rather than these one-time workshops that you'd go to and then leave kind of disappointed and empty. So we wanted to bring coaching, which provides opportunities. I'm preaching to the choir here, but reflection, practice, feedback. And the science and the practice really shows that that's how we make new knowledge stick. And so back in the day, this was the early 2000s, we hadn't heard of many places offering coaching specifically for family childcare educators. There were a few organizations across the country doing home visits. We researched them. We wanted to learn from them. And what we created was a family child care specific coaching model, right? There wasn't a family child care specific coaching model, and it really thought that we needed to create that. We wanted to bring the science and the practice together, which showed that the biggest impact is made when we make this kind of investment. And what we saw in the early 2000s was that home-based childcare educators, from what we could see, were largely left out of this kind of investment. And, you're being very kind, but over time, our coaching program really evolved. And we listened to educators and we deepened our understanding of what supports real change. And we made it more relational and more driven by adult learning. And that came from feedback from our coaches and our educators. We also introduced this idea of mentor coaches. Coaches need coaches too. And so this was this idea of this parallel process. Mentor coaches support coaches, coaches support educators, educators coach family childcare educators hold in, coach, and support children and families. We created this chain of care and growth, kind of each link reinforcing the next. And then the coaches and the educators improved our model by reminding us, as we learned more, that we have to ground our practice in cultural responsiveness. So we really grew as we grew up. And I think what hasn't changed is the heart of our approach, which is building trust, believing in the educators' expertise, walking alongside the educators, and recognizing that lasting growth comes from reflection and collaboration, and that educators and children benefit best from that in real life learning places.
Yeah. Oof. That was amazing. And what was really amazing for me is to hear you talk about it and having experienced everything that you talked about. It's the different points in my life, experiencing the work internally when we piloted new programs, when we got feedback, when we shifted because we learned new research. And so we shifted also our approaches. So all of that. Thank you so much for that, Jay. And can I
Sure.
ask you also, if there's a community that's thinking about supporting family childcare through like a coaching model, what would you offer them?
I think this is a learning moment for me. I'm going to demonstrate some vulnerability here. The biggest insight for me, and I think for all our kin, we were always centered on relationships from the very beginning. But I think over time, we also wanted to have some kind of way to know if we were making a difference in our coaches' lives and our educators' lives and our children's lives. And I learned from you and Luce and Tanya and all of our coaches and mentor coaches. They showed me, and I think they showed our community, that trust and consistency are what makes change possible, not checklists. It's relationships. And we never had checklists, but I think there was a point when I felt a little pressure from the world, not from all our kin, to demonstrate that we were making a difference, because we do this work so that children have better outcomes, but not at the expense of coaches' well-being or educators' well-being. So we took a lot of time to like document what effective family childcare coaches knew, did, how they showed up, their ways of being. And we learned it was a useful tool to support growth, but it started as more of an evaluation tool. And coaches said, no, you need to listen. And there was some challenges at that point, because there was some value in knowing how the coaches were growing and developing. But the feedback we heard was that the coaches needed to do that for themselves. And they could use this framework, they could use this tool we had created, but that, it really had to come from them. It couldn't be, like you talked about in the beginning, come from the chief learning officer, me, even though I had focus groups and I talked with all the coaches and we built it from what you told us you did. So that was a deep learning to like really listen to educators, really listen to coaches, and have them drive the work, have them drive what happens in actual family childcare programs, and then invest in your coaches. I think one of the best things we did was create regular ed coach meetings that sometimes were communities of practice and sometimes were just administrative meetings. We did a lot of training. And we invested in reflective supervision for them, which continues today. And we've actually enlarged it for almost everyone at all our kin, so that the work you do of holding people, of caring, of being in a relationship with people is hard, and it's can be heavy. And you need a space to think about it, reflect on it, to grow from it. And so I'm really proud of that and of our mentor coaches. I think that's one of the best things we did. Just acknowledging that educators need coaching and coaches themselves need support. And I think the coaching model is strongest when there is that chain of care and growth, with mentorship and guidance flowing through every level.
Yeah. Woo, thank you for that. I hope, that's certainly of service to me as I continue to think about like our model and the layers that support our model. I think about, you talked about the way that you were talking about these layers of support. I think about it in like this nesting model too, that I think talk about in the 3 R's, where the children are at the center. Yep. And the educator is like that layered out, and then the layer out from the educator is the coach, and then the layer out from the coach is the mentor coach, and then the organization. I think I know, and I know that you agree with me, that we thrive in relationship. And I've witnessed this myself, where I've seen the exponential growth in confidence in an educator that I've coached, that I've been in a coaching partnership with. So like, right. I mean, I'm saying that because I'm just reflecting back, the richness of the richness that comes from a model that you really helped to create in partnership with all of us.
Yeah.
That
and I
wasn't
just
perfect, right? It wasn't
no,
perfect.
no,
It's
no.
not perfect.
I was gonna say, can I just say two more things? One, our coaching framework has draft on it still, right? Which is just an example of how we roll. Like, we're always going to be iterating and making it better and getting more feedback. And I remembered something while you were speaking that we used to call our ed coaches consultants.
We did.
Right. And then because a lot of times instructional, when you're in schools, they're called consultants. They're not called coaches, educational consultants. But we weren't consulting. We realized that there's something different between coaching and consulting. And I think that's something that new communities have to think about. Are they consultants? Are they coaches? Are they mentors? Because they're all different things. And coaches, as you know, we're both certified coaches, not just for children, but for adults. Coaching is really centered on the coachee, and we're not coming with expertise and telling people what to do and giving them advice and tips. We're tapping into their own wisdom and their own experience, right? So that they become the person, the teacher, the leader they want to be. And that's what we tried to put on paper and to operationalize. And I think we do it, but it's something that one should think about when they're thinking about how do they want to support home-based child care educators.
Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I'll reflect back. A lot of what you said is the role of a coach is to be a reflective partner who listens to curiosity, commits to the collective power, learning, unlearning, and growth.
Oh, yes.
Right? Like those are not solitary acts, but seeds that germinate in community with respect, humility, and love. Right? Like that is it.
Yes.
Any last
here.
Yeah, you're here. Any last nuggets of wisdom before we move on to the next part of our conversation?
I would just say that it took a long time. You know, we're 27 years old, and creating something that's nuanced and complicated and based in relationships is not easy. And you just have to give yourself patience and be willing to hear feedback. And, you know, it's a journey, as they say. So, but we're here to help. So, you know, call us.
Thank you, Jana.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Marina.
Of course, always. I hope to have you close to my life for a very, very long time.
Always.
Okay. Thanks, Jana, again. Now we're going to do a very brief 1-minute intermission because the next part of our conversation will take place fully in Spanish. And so we are going to ask you to ensure that you have your globe in the right setting for language. So I've been in English this entire time, but because I'm going to present now in Spanish and our conversation will be in Spanish, I'm going to switch to Spanish. I'm going to ask Juanita to come off mute in case she has anything else to share about this. Any additional instructions, but I think this should work for us. So please, again, ensure that you're in your preferred learning language at this point. Hola. Como hablé hace unos segundos, esta parte de la conversación va a suceder en español y quiero invitar a mi amiga y colega coach Juanita también, Luz, a que me acompañe a esta conversación. También voy a invitar a mi colega y amiga Tania a que me acompañe en esta parte de nuestra conversación y a Yasmín. Así las 4 de nosotras podemos estar en pantalla. Gracias, chicas, por estar aquí, por darnos de su tiempo. Jasmine, si también puede acompañarme en pantalla. Sí, es un honor tener esta conversación con ustedes. Yo creo que puedo hablar muy francamente que nosotras somos realmente las que hacemos este trabajo. Jasmine, tú eres educadora, tú estás haciendo este trabajo en tu programa diariamente con un compañerismo con Luz que te ha ayudado. So, queremos tener esa conversación ahora, ¿verdad? Vamos a dedicarle, yo creo que los próximos 15 minutos a nosotras hablar abiertamente de este trabajo, como nos fluya. Y voy a empezar con Luz. Luz, ¿tú crees que nos puedes decir un poco acerca de ti? Ah, y también que nos cuentes, ¿qué te motivó a ti a trabajar con educadores de cuidado infantil familiar?
Bueno, a todos, Luz Martínez, una mamá de 3 maravillosos hijos y 2 nietos hermosos que me dieron el título como abuelita. Comencé como maestra en educación hace 20 años de niños y luego, bueno, yo llego a este país, para todos los que no me conocen, vengo de mi país, Colombia, llegué hace 20 años. Y una de las cosas que se me dio como oportunidad fue trabajar en la educación y llegué a Olarquín por cosas de la vida y hablaba mi idioma, español, y yo quería aprender de educación. Y eso fue lo más maravilloso y lo más, creo yo, bendecido para mí, donde comienzo a aprender sobre educación en mi idioma y donde me motivan tanto para yo seguir navegando y llegar a obtener los títulos que he obtenido en educación. Pero yo me estaba en esos momentos, en esos espacios con educadoras en el hogar y me llamaba mucho la atención su estilo familiar y eran como yo, luchando por salir adelante en un país donde nosotros llegamos como emigrantes y queremos dar lo mejor. Y en ese momento habíamos escogido educación y queríamos ser buenas educadoras, queríamos aprender y llevarle todo esto a las familias y a los niños. Y de ahí nace yo comenzar como coach. Pero si les contara la historia de Olar King, creo que no acabaría porque yo llegué simplemente como una educadora allí buscando información y Olar King años después me da la posibilidad de ser coach. Y fue lo más maravilloso. Me acuerdo ese día la felicidad tan grande que sentí y siento que ha sido lo más lindo que este país me ha dado poder trabajar con educadoras, poder transformar vidas de familias, niños y ser apoyada por colegas tan maravillosas que yo he tenido como Marina, Tania, mi mentora, tal y como lo decía Jana, que una coach necesita una mentora y esa ha sido mi grande mentora, la que me llevó por esos caminos, y Marina, que era mi colega y luego mi directora, quienes me dieron unas bases fuertes y de amar lo que hoy hago yo.
Sí, gracias, Luz. Luz, ¿y cómo tú describirías la esencia del enfoque de tu coaching?
Primero es construir una relación donde mi educadora se sienta segura, donde confíe en mí y donde ella pueda ser ella, poderme expresar sus sentimientos de cómo ella se siente, de cómo yo la puedo apoyar sin sentir miedo a mostrarme quién es ella, culturalmente, con su idioma, con sus emociones, con sus dificultades, con sus habilidades, con sus estrategias. Y eso fue la mayor herramienta para mí, creada ese valor que también me lo dio Larkin, el construir una relación tan importante donde ese espacio le diera seguridad a mi educadora y tener ese apoyo también de otras colegas que iban a estar para mí cuando yo sintiera que las necesitaba para poder dar lo mejor de mí a las educadoras.
Gracias por eso. Jasmine, voy a invitarte a que tú nos cuentes un poco acerca de tu programa y que nos hables un poco acerca, ¿verdad? Como qué te llevó a trabajar con niños y que nos digas un poco del trabajo que tú hiciste con Luz. que nos identifiques alguna historia, ¿verdad? Algo que nos ayude a entender realmente el trabajo que ustedes hicieron en ese compañerismo.
Ok. Mi nombre es Jasmine Ávila. Buenas tardes a todas. Soy educadora de cuidado infantil en la área de Isaben. Llevo desde el 2007 participando con Orkin, pero desde el 2008 fue que obtuve mi licencia y todo me inspiró. Orkin me ayudó bastante, me transformó por un año entero, me dejó coger clases de desarrollo de educación a primera infancia mientras que yo tenía mi trabajo, otro trabajo actual. Luego al año decidí cambiar de profesión y me dediqué a abrir el daycare. También soy mamá, entonces fue parte clara para mí poder tener el cuidado y a la misma vez cuidar de mis hijos y también ofrecer las puertas de mi casa, mi hogar, a familias que necesitaran ayudas. Y también soy bilingüe, so traté siempre de que mi cuido sea bien diverso, que acepte diferentes culturas, ayudar a mi comunidad. Y todo pasó un proceso, me empecé a desarrollar en Orkin. Ahí conocí, estaban ofreciendo el coaching. Empecé con otra coaching que estuvo unos meses conmigo, luego ella se transfiere a otro lugar y Luz comienza conmigo y ya desde que Luz comienza fue una experiencia más que todo amigable primero, me hizo sentir muy cómoda, segura, eh, fue de muchas preguntas abiertas, me sentí muy cómoda, fue algo muy honesto y pues, o como siempre, al principio uno tiene como un poquito de miedo de abrir las puertas a una persona que uno no conoce o que uno cree que la van a juzgar, pero ella me dio la comunidad de sentirme tan cómoda y ser tan honesta y exponerle mis inquietudes, exponerle qué era lo que pasaba en mi daycare y, o en mi cuido y qué era lo que yo necesitaba ayuda.
Sí.
Entonces fue una comunicación abierta. Ella me ayudaba, yo le decía, ponía las estrategias a hacer las cosas que ella me daba técnicas para, pero no, nunca me obligaba. Era, Jasmine, trata esto. Jasmine, quizás puedes hacer esto. Y ya, y me dejaba así, a ver cómo yo fluía. Entonces fue un tiempo de desarrollo, de trabajo juntos. Yo la podía llamar, ella también siempre estaba disponible, o siempre está disponible. Y sí, una transformación súper de cuando yo empecé ahora, del cielo a la tierra.
Claro, claro, me lo imagino. Wow, gracias por compartir eso, Jasmine. Recuerdo que ustedes ambas me hablaron de una historia donde ustedes colaboraron para apoyar una familia. Si me pueden hablar un poco de eso y cómo fue esa colaboración en los próximos 2 minutos.
Eh,
Dale.
Eso, Yasmín tenía mucha preocupación. Yo llego a su programa y era con una familia que en ese momento la mamá del niño estaba pasando por una circunstancia de apego terrible con su niño por su lactancia. Y su cultura le enseñaba a ella pues a lactar hasta tarde edad, pero bueno, ya el niño estaba en la transición de pasar de la etapa de lactancia a comida, ¿verdad? Y él tuvo ese momento tan difícil emocionalmente del desapego de su madre que él duraba todo el día sin comer y él lloraba mucho. Obvio, Yasmín estaba supremamente preocupadísima y en cómo yo apoyo a la mamá emocionalmente, cómo apoyo al niño, porque ella también se sentía culpable como fue que yo no lo hice a tiempo este desapego, fue que yo no lo supe manejar la transición. Y se llega el día en que llega la mamá en ese momento donde yo estoy con ella hablando por medio de la reflexión, porque nosotras reflexionábamos mucho y muchas preguntas. Entonces yo le decía, Yasmín, ¿tú qué piensas aquí? ¿Tú qué piensas que podría ayudarnos? Entonces ella me contaba todo. Cuéntame cómo es el día del niño. Y ahí estaban todas estas preguntas y la reflexión de ella. Y llega la mamá temprano sin haberle dicho a Yasmín porque ella estaba preocupada por su niño y ella estaba emocionalmente caída, lloraba y lloraba y lloraba. Y yo pude en ese momento mirar ese escenario de Yasmín, cómo emocionalmente la abraza. Ella le dice, yo me siento la peor mamá, yo no pude, mire mi hijo cómo sufre, no está comiendo. Y ella le dice, no, tú no fuiste la peor mamá, tú fuiste una buena mamá y las dos vamos a trabajar juntas, nosotros te vamos a ayudar. Y se voltea y le dice, acá está mi coach y nosotras estamos planeando cómo ayudarte, cómo apoyarte. Y comenzamos a hablar con ella. Yo en ese momento estaba ahí parada y ella era otra persona de otra cultura de nosotras, muy diferente. Y yo decía, tengo que respetar su cultura. ¿Cómo voy a hablar con ella? Yo simplemente le dije, aquí estamos para apoyarte. Nosotros te vamos a ayudar. Estamos hablando de tiempo, de cómo podemos ayudarle al niño a transicionar por ese tiempo poco a poco para que él vaya aceptando y no se afecte tanto emocionalmente. Y ahí Jasmine les puede contar lo que pasó en este caso.
Jasmine, ¿nos puedes contar?
Marina, sí, eso es como el círculo de seguridad, donde tú
Sí.
dices que ahí ustedes tienen unas mentoras para ayudar a las coach. Era coach ayudándome, mi coach Luz ayudándome para yo poder transmitirle a la mamá cuál era el plan para que la mamá pudiera ayudar al hijo. Era un trabajo conjunto, le hablamos de tiempo, tal vez en vez de estar todo el día, empieza a despegar un poco para que me di el tiempo un poco más corto de dejarlo en el cuido y después ir gradualmente a más horas, menos pecho para que el niño comiera, porque el problema era que ya el niño tenía como 2 años y medio, 3, y no comía, esperaba todo el tiempo solamente la leche materna. Me rechazaba y siempre estaba que quería el seno, y no comía esperando a la mamá. Entonces era algo preocupante para mí, pero también tenía que entender esa ternura de la mamá que lo quería cuidar, que esa era su cultura. Entonces fue un proceso, pero lo logramos. Ahora ya ese niño no está conmigo, pero la mamá tuvo otro niño y con ese bebé sí está dando leche materna, pero lo está usando cuando está en la casa, eh, usa su seno, pero cuando va afuera ya le ofrece en botellas, en biberón,
Wow.
que con él sí no, el niño no sabía.
Sí, sí. Wow. Tan fuerte, tan maravillosa esta historia, porque describieron el proceso paralelo tan perfecto, ¿verdad? Así realmente es que funciona el proceso paralelo en una relación de coaching, ¿verdad? Luz estaba ahí, Luz en apoyo en ese compañerismo contigo. Tú en el compañerismo con la familia ahora desarrollan herramientas nuevas de cómo manejar una situación para el futuro, tal y como que ya el próximo niño que tuvieron, pues hay otra manera de manejarlo, más eficaz y, disculpa, todo en la ternura de la relación. Les voy a dar las gracias. Discúlpenme porque me siento un poco ajorada. Es lo del tiempo, ¿verdad? Queremos darle un poco de tiempo a Tania también que exprese qué está en tu mente ahora mismo, Tania, reflejando el trabajo que has hecho con Luz y con tantas otras coaches, porque Tania trabaja con las coaches en Nueva York, en Connecticut, y ella tiene tantas historias. Entonces, Tania, ¿qué tú nos puedes compartir acerca de ese enfoque de tu trabajo con las coaches?
Gracias, Marina. Es una maravilla estar aquí y escuchar a todas hablar del proceso de cómo desarrolla un niño y el proceso de tu relación. No es fácil lo que hace Luz y Jasmine. Es complicado. Hay muchos detalles, muchas conversaciones. Yo sé que Jasmine está haciendo mucha experimentación mientras que Luz no está ahí. Y en el lado mío, yo estoy ahí. A veces voy a las visitas con Luz a ver las educadoras, pero también estamos en comunidad yo y Luz y las otras coaches hablando de ese proceso, porque es muy, muy detalloso. Y también para la coach profundizarse en su práctica, hay que tener ese espacio con la relación con confianza, hay que tener ese espacio para que la coach sigue evolucionando en su carrera, en su espíritu, en su mente, en su práctica, porque es tan detalloso. Este, también, Marina, tú hablaste de esa sintonía, ese proceso de sintonía con niños, hay sintonía con mis relaciones con las coaches y yo escuchando en el proceso paralelo, escuchando. Yo he que trabajado con Luz con muchos años y muchas de las coaches y hay coaches que yo he trabajado por 1 año o 10 meses. O sea, hay todo la evolución de diferentes relaciones. Pero yo creo que ese proceso en mi práctica yo tomo mi tiempo para cuando yo salgo de mi espacio con la coach, tomar buenas notas, hacer mis observaciones, repasar si estamos grabando. Por ejemplo, hoy estamos grabando, yo voy a ir a ver cómo yo hice hoy, como Luz estaba hablando para yo procesar eso con ella para la próxima. O sea, siempre es un proceso que estoy pensando, haciendo preguntas, escuchando. um, en mi práctica, pero siempre con el base de confianza y ese espacio donde uno puede tomar esos riesgos. Sin el riesgo, sin esa confianza, no se puede profundizar su práctica.
Y gracias, Tania, por decirle eso, porque yo tuve una experiencia muy linda con Tania. Y fue que Tania me grabara y yo por medio de ese video, ella me dijo, míralo, reflexiona, no me tienes que contar nada, es para ti, pero si quieres contarme algo, lo recibo. Y duré 3 semanas mirándolo, dándome cuenta dónde fallaba yo, Luz, de dónde traía yo un nivel que era más center y yo no quería ese nivel de center, yo quería ese nivel de un estilo familiar que era lo que yo estaba compartiendo con mis educadoras y descubrirme a mí misma, navegar por medio de las preguntas que Tania me hacía a mí y buscar mis respuestas. ¿Dónde estaba yo equivocada? Y eso, Tania, fue un valor que le dio a mi coaching muy grande porque yo sé que Yasmín lo vivió, donde yo podía hacerle a ella reflexionar sobre un escenario. Bueno, y cuéntame, ¿cómo lo acostaste a dormir? ¿Y tú qué pensaste ahí? ¿Cómo te sentiste tú? ¿Qué tú crees que está pasando ahí que te haga feliz y que todavía te haga dudar a ti de que no está trabajando? Y eso fue a través de ti, Tania, porque tú me lo transferiste a mí de esa forma de reflexionar única, donde yo encontraba las respuestas de los cambios que yo tenía que hacer y colocar eh, unas herramientas muy valoradas en el coaching, que es la reflexión para hacer transformación y dar un propósito con intencionalidad y propósito. Y siento que Yasmín lo logró porque para las que no saben, ay, Yasmín es una peer mentor ahora de educadoras también. Y ella dice, esto fue un círculo maravilloso que yo tuve que pasar para lograr ahora el trabajo que estoy haciendo con otras de mis colegas.
Gracias
¿Podría,
por
una
esto,
cosa,
Luz.
¿podría decir una cosa más?
Sí,
Que
claro.
hoy es un riesgo para mí porque en puertas cerradas yo me siento muy cómoda en español. Pero yo nací en Puerto Rico, soy rusa y puertorriqueña. Vine aquí y se me olvidó todo mi español por 10 años. Entonces, no estoy cómoda, pero porque yo sé que Marina me está aguantando, Luz me está aguantando y yo sé que Jasmine me está aguantando. Yo puedo en este espacio tomar el riesgo de hablar en español porque yo prefiero el inglés porque se me hace mucho más fácil. Pero
Sí.
gracias para yo decir que ese proceso es para leer y el nivel, si yo espero mucho de Luz o de una coach, yo espero igual que para yo misma, para tomar esos riesgos para crecer.
Sí. Wow. Estamos a ley de unos minutos para cerrar. Esta conversación ha sido tan profunda. Lo más que me llena el corazón, además de nosotras en comunidad, forjar diferentes maneras de ser como mujeres, como líderes en nuestras comunidades, en nuestro trabajo. Además de eso, lo que también me llena de emoción es que estamos creando espacios para tantos niños estar en entornos que realmente los ven por por todo el milagro realmente que ellos son en su desarrollo, en su aprendizaje, ¿verdad? Que estamos cambiando realmente el rumbo, como dijo Ellen anteriormente, estamos haciendo cambios en nuestra cultura para la mejoría de nosotros como humanos, de nosotros como nos llevamos. Entonces, voy a invitar a Ellen y voy a invitar a Jana para hacerle un cierre de nuestro tiempo. Discúlpenme mil que no nos dio tiempo para que ustedes ofrezcan palabras de sabiduría, pero espero nosotros continuar esta conversación en otro espacio. Y ahora voy a cambiar a inglés. And now I am going to flip to English. So I just heard Juanita doing the switch to the English and Spanish, which is really cool. So as evident by this conversation, we can confidently say that coaching in family childcare is more than professional development, right? It transforms practice, strengthens educators' confidence, and deepens connections with children and families. By providing relational, reflective, strength-based coaching truly helps the educator and the coach grow. We know that it reduces isolation and builds the foundation for high quality and equitable care. What we've seen today is that when educators are supported in this way, the impact ripples across programs, families, and community. And I'll close by just sharing deep, deep, heartfelt gratitude to all of you as friends, colleagues, guests, our interpreters. Truly, your dedication and intentionality, I admire. Thank you all for tuning in, the ones that are still here. And a recording of this webinar will be shared to the email that was provided through the registration link. And please join us next week when our partners from the state of Tennessee, Signal Centers, with whom we've had the honor to partner and strengthen their supports for family childcare, will be joining us. So that'll be September 22nd at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we've shared in the chat the links to everybody's LinkedIn profile, website, and with this, I close out. In the meantime, keep doing this rewarding and arduous work of elevating family childcare, not just as a service, but as an integral part of the systems that support families and the economy. Talk to you all later.